Hello everyone and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. I'm your host Ryan, and today I'm pretty darn excited, if you couldn't tell, because we're going to be covering the exhibition matches that happened this weekend. There were 6 of them in total. We're going to get kind of a little bit of a deep dive into each of them, kind of give some thoughts on them, but I'm so excited for this because it's been, probably like 4 or 5 months, maybe even more, since we finally got to talk about some CDL matches, some official stuff, not just like scrim kind of stuff. You know that's my favorite part about this channel, is kind of diving into the matches and analyzing some Call of Duty. I like talking about the roster changes and stuff. I love that, but actually being able to see some matches finally on this game and kind of see where teams stand early on is super cool, so we're going to dive into that. Don't want to spend too much time in the intro, so be sure to leave a like and comment and subscribe if you enjoy this. Also, remember to comment down below if you want in on the draft buff league. That I'm trying to start up. We need like a few more people for a good sized league. I had a couple people hit me up, say they wanted to be in the league. One person said he had a friend also that would like to be in, so I was like, awesome, that's cool. So I think we're on like 6-7 people right now, but I mean, we can do a league with 6 or 7 people, but personally, I kind of like the fantasy football style where you have like a head-to-head matchup each week instead of like total scoring. So yeah, I kind of want to do it where we can get like 10 people-ish in it. So just comment down below if you're interested, and if we get more than 10 people, we'll do 2 leagues or we'll make like one giant league. We have plenty of flexibility with it. I'll do 10 leagues if I have to. I don't care. The more the merrier. So just comment down below if you're interested in that. I'd like to do a pretty good sized league so we don't all have like god tier teams. If there's 10 people in the league, then you draft, 4 players a team. You're almost got every player in the league drafted but like 8, because I think there's 48 players in the league, something like that. So yeah, I would love to get a good sized league going, maybe like 10 people. After that, we probably have to cut it off just because you don't want every player in the league picked. But yeah, comment down below if you want to get into that. Really, really looking forward to that. But without any more waiting, let's just get right into the matches. This may be back to like our old school kind of. It's kind of weird to call it old school because it was just last season, but it might be more back to like our old, longer format, kind of like the podcast type video, because there are a good bit of matches to cover, and a lot of them went to game 5s and stuff. I believe they were all either 3-0s or 3-2s. I don't think there were any 3-1s, but there's a good bit of stuff to dive into. So let's get into that matches without further ado. The first match of the weekend, I believe I have them in order. If I go off order, it's not really that big of a deal because this wasn't like a tournament format. It was just scrimmages, basically. But I believe the first match of the weekend was that Dallas Empire versus New York Subliners matchup. And honestly, this was probably one of the most anticipated matchups for people because it was Clay versus former team, the defending champs and stuff, a lot of big profile players. And then the Optic versus Thieves obviously was like another really, really anticipated match because Optic and Thieves have like the most fans. And they ended up being probably the 2 worst matches, honestly. The first hardpoint on Garrison was 250 to 192, went to Dallas Empire. I'm getting most of these stats also off of breakingpoint.gg, like a new site started by like Easy Mac and I think like Tactical Rab and like the CDL Intel guys. So shout out to them. This website, honestly, before this video, I went to go look for some stats and stuff so I could actually have them in front of me so I'm not butchering it. And their stats are like awesome. This website is awesome. You guys should go check it out if you ever miss some matches or something, because I wasn't able to catch like a couple games here and there. Due to being busy, and I'm also from Wisconsin. I'm not a Packer fan, but I was watching the Packer game with some friends and stuff. So I kind of missed like a couple matches here and there, missed like a couple points. So it's good to go back and look at the stats, and this website's awesome. So a little side note, but shout out to them. This first map, though, I don't want to spend as much time on this match because it was so bad. And New York really didn't have a fair shake at it. But it was 250 to 192 Dallas. New York actually looked at some points like they had a chance in the map. Couple swing hills. That like P1 catwalk, I think, was kind of a swing hill if I remember right, in like the 2nd or 3rd rotation. But Crim played pretty well in this game. Huke slayed out. He had a 1.3. Illey played pretty well. Shottzyy absolutely destroyed. He went double positive. In this first map, he was positive 18 kills. Absolutely nuts. Asim struggled a little bit. He had around a 0.9. Diamond Con looked pretty good. Mac really struggled in his sub role, and then Clay looked pretty darn bad. He got destroyed. Had a 0.5. But like I said, I want to give a little bit of a benefit of the doubt to New York because they just subbed Diamond Con in. He had like a week of practice. This was his first ever pro match. Even though it wasn't a real match, I'm sure he was super nervous. I would definitely be nervous. It was his first time like on a big time stream, on a big time stage, and he had to play against the defending world champs. Like he had to play the greatest player of all time in his first ever match. It's like stepping on the floor and you're playing Michael Jordan in your first NBA game or something. Like you're going to be nervous. But he played pretty well actually. So yeah, we're going to give New York a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but Dallas looks strong. Going on to the game 2, Dallas won this 6-2. Illey kind of shined here. He went double positive. Clay kind of struggled a little bit once again. Diamond kind of struggled here in this search. But overall, New York just, I mean, they're all going to struggle. When you lose 6-2, you're really not going to have anybody on your team with a great game, most likely. But New York looked pretty weak here. Dallas looked strong, not a shocker, because Dallas was super strong in S&D, and they basically fielded the same team, just minus Clay. And illey comes from the search and destroy scene. He's a search star. So you'd expect him to, any team with illey on it, to have a pretty good search mind. Crim's been around forever. He's a pretty good search player. Huke has never been like amazing at search, but he's solid. And then shottzyy last year wasn't all that great at search. It was definitely his worst game mode, but he's picking it up more and more as he goes along, and he's kind of illey's duo, so you figure he's going to learn from illey, and they're going to be pretty well off. Now, once again, it's hard to really talk about anything about New York here. I would say the negatives is, once again, Clay doesn't look too strong, but that could just be due to lack of practice. I'm not going to doubt Clay. He's a back-to-back world champ. I'm not going to start doubting him here. Diamond kind of struggled in this one, like I said. Asim was okay. Mac had a pretty good map here, but he kind of struggled overall in the day. We'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about this. Game 3, it was control on raid. 3-1 win for Dallas here. I believe it was Dallas was up, or was it 1-1? I think it was 1-1 in the control, and then illey had like a really nasty 1v2 clutch against like Clay and Asim maybe, and that allowed them to go up 2-1, and then they ended up rolling. I think that was just a big momentum swing. Crim played really well on this map. He went 34 and 23. Huke was around to 1, same with shottzyy, and then illey played really well, 32 and 22. Then the other side, Asim went double neg at 15 and 30. Diamond Conrad was around to 1. Mac had a 1, and then Clay was around to 1. So, I mean, honestly, for New York, they pretty much got bodied. I mean, they got beat by 60 in the hard point, 4 rounds in the search, and 3-1 in control. But they could have easily won the control if illey doesn't clutch that 1v2. And honestly, it was just like somebody on their team had an awful map in most of the maps. The search, they just got dominated. But in that game 1 hard point, Clay and Mac played awful. And then in that control, Asim played awful. So it's like, yeah, they got bodied, they got 3-0'd, but they only had a week of practice. Diamond Khan was around to 1 the entire series. He looked pretty darn good for just having no practice with the team. Clay struggled a little bit in map 1, but kind of found his footing, and I'm not worried about Clay. But then Mac and Asim were really inconsistent. Each of them had a bad game on the opposite respawn. So it's like they seem to have consistency issues. If they can maybe pick up the consistency, and Asim can consistently be around a 0.8 or higher, and Mac's kind of the slayer of this team. He's got to be above a 1 in my opinion. So if those guys can get the consistency up, I'm actually not as worried about New York as you might think. I mean, obviously with the whole Zuma news and him retiring, that really sucks, by the way. I don't think we've ever talked about that because I think the last episode happened before that happened. So Zuma retired and stuff due to that injury, and that just sucks. I mean, Zuma, he's an all-time great player. He's still playing at a super high level. He's still easily one of the best subs in the league, and he just has to retire due to some injury issues like with his thumb and wrist. I mean, that just sucks, man. I mean, like, he's a really likable guy, great player. Really sad to see him go, and obviously for New York's case, they're really sad to see him go because they lose a great teammate, a great person for the organization, but also a great player. So moving on to the next match, I didn't want to take too much time up on that New York match because, like I said, it was the defending world champs versus a team on 1 week of practice. It wasn't really all that great of a match, but the next match ended up being a pretty darn good one. I think it was kind of predictable that this was good because there are two teams that were kind of placing maybe towards the middle of the pack or bottom, but we have no idea. It was LA Gorillas versus the Seattle Surge. Kind of a new look roster for both teams. On LAG, we got Apathy, Assault, Silly, and Vivid, so 3 of those EG members that won the World Championship. And then on the Seattle Surge side, we've got Octane returning, but then he's got 3 new teammates in Gunless, Looney, and Prestinni. This map 1 was a raid hardpoint. It was a slaughter, I'll be honest. It was 250 to 123 in favor of LAG. I mean, Apathy slayed out. He had a 1.2. Assault had a 1.6. Silly was 1.5, and Vivid was around to 1. And the other side, Gunless was around to 1. Looney struggled with about a 0.5. Prestinni had like a 0.7. And then Octane pretty much went even. So slaying-wise, I mean, the slaying wasn't even that heavily in favor of LAG. They were just dominating so much in the rotations and stuff that it really didn't matter. Map wasn't close at all. Then the map 2, Surge took the search and destroy 6-3. This is encouraging. It was another raid search. This is encouraging though for the Surge because if you remember their team from last year, they were literally incapable of winning a search and destroy, and LAG was actually a pretty good search team. And even this year, you would think LAG can be okay because Silly's an okay search player. Vivid's supposed to be like an S&D star, and Apathy kind of plays weird in search. He just runs around like crazy, but he's an okay search player. And then Seattle Surge, Octane's not the best in search, but they had Prestinni, who was a pretty good search player, and then Gunless and Looney should be okay in search. They looked really good. They all went positive. LAG kind of got bodied in this map, not much else to say. But Surge, I mean, that's an encouraging sign if you're a Seattle Surge fan. The one thing, they were okay at hardpoint last year and they were okay at Dom. The one thing they just could not do was win Search, and they're able to take one here. Then the control goes 3-2 in favor of the Surge on Garrison. Apathy absolutely destroyed for LAG, though he went 39-25. Everybody else was around a 0.8, somewhere around there. And then on Seattle Surge, Looney and Octane were a little bit above a 1, and the other two were around 0.8, 0.9, Gunless and Prestinni. They looked good. This was a really close map. Honestly, like damage and slaying wise, it was almost in favor of LAG. Just Seattle Surge was able to clutch out some rounds. I just don't even know. Like, no team really showed me a ton here. I feel like, honestly, this is weird to say, but I feel like from this match overall, they both kind of proved that, I mean, they could improve or they could get worse. You never know. But from this match, it almost seems like they both proved that they're middle of the pack to lower, because we kind of pinned them both there, and they played each other so close, if you know what I'm saying, kind of. Because then the Moscow hardpoint game 4 with Seattle Surge up 2-1 went 250-234 in favor of LAG. Pretty much everybody on LAG was around a 1 in this map, besides Apathy was around a 0.8. And then Seattle Surge, everybody was above a 1 or at a 1, besides Looney, who was around like a 0.9. So like Surge outslayed them in this hardpoint, but they ended up losing. That seems like something that always happened to that EG team in World War II with 3 of these players. They always seem to get outslayed, but they found a way to win, especially at Champs. But overall, LAG win this map. It's a really close one. Surge outslay them, actually, by a few kills. By, like, 10 kills, actually, I think. I think they outslayed them by around 10 kills. I'm not 100% sure looking at the numbers here. I'm just trying to do some quick math here, but I think they outslayed them by about 10 kills. But, yeah, I don't know how Surge don't win this map. Rotations weren't as good for them, obviously, if they were able to lose while outslaying. Sorry, I'm getting stumbled over my words here. But Moscow hardpoint, let's talk about that for a second. That map's kind of trash to watch. Some of those hills are just so unbreakable, and the map's so big. Sometimes you're spawning out, and you have a 30-second run to the hill, so you just get free time. It's just not a great map to watch. I'm really hoping we get, like, Standoff in the game. Or Express, like they've talked about. We can get Express or Standoff hardpoint in for, like, Moscow and Crossroads. Hoping that can happen, but once again here, Surge lose a hardpoint. Then they go to Game 5 Search, and Gorillas win at 6-3 on Garrison. Octane and Prestinni had bad maps. Looney had a bad map. Gunless played pretty well. And then Vivid and Apathy really took over on the side for LAG, and they kind of dominated the Search. They both went double positive and were kind of just forces on the map. But I will say, if you're an LAG fan, this is a positive, because people were pinning the Surge as a better team than you. Obviously, these are scrim, so we can't take, like, this doesn't mean that LAG is 100% a better team than Surge. We don't know that because they're decently even teams. But it's a positive if you're an LAG fan, because they won both hardpoints, which is something they were dead last in last year. They were 12th in hardpoint record. And then they were able to take a Search, which they were good at. And then on the same token, if you look at the Seattle Surge, all they did last year was win Doms, and then the occasional hardpoint they couldn't win a Search. They were able to take Search, and they were able to take Control here in a map 3, so that means they stayed solid at mode 3, hopefully. They looked okay in Search, but then, my God, were they pretty bad in hardpoint. But any team with, like, Gunless and Octane and Prestinni, like, you have some slaying power, you're probably going to end up figuring it out in hardpoint. So the fact that they have it more figured out in Search and Control seems to be a good sign. So honestly, I don't think this is too much negative to take away. They both need to do some work, because they're both middle of the pack at best. But honestly, there's some positive takeaways for both teams. Now the next match, maybe the most interesting one of the weekend here, Florida versus Atlanta. Kind of going in, I honestly thought I didn't think that the New York match was going to be that close. Just because of the caliber of teams in Seattle and LAG, I wasn't as interested. Then, like, the London-Paris, I was kind of intrigued just because I wanted to see how Paris played. Toronto-Minnesota, I was intrigued because I wanted to see how Minnesota played. And then I actually thought Optic 100 Thieves was going to be a better match than it was. I thought Optic would win, but I thought it'd be better. But in this match, this ended up being the best one. I kind of could anticipate it, because Faze, obviously, were figuring they're going to be really good. And then a lot of people were saying that Florida was going to be really good, and they seemed to prove it here. They came out, though, and it was kind of an interesting map 1. It was a hardpoint on Garrison. Atlanta Faze won at 250-218, so a pretty close map, only like a 30-point victory. But if you look at the slaying department, I mean, Florida got destroyed in the slaying department. Abezy had a 1.2, Celium with a 1.5, Simp with a 1.5, Arcitys with a 0.9. And on the other side, everybody on Florida was negative, and Neptune had the best KD with a 0.88. Like, what, they got outslayed by something like 20 something kills. Like, it's pretty bad. I can't believe that they actually were able to make it this close. I saw most of the map one. I missed like a little bit of it because I was a little bit busy, but looking at the slaying department, this is concerning for Atlanta personally, because they're able to win the map by 30, but they outslayed, like, based on the way they outslayed Florida, they should have won this map probably by something like 100 plus. Like, this should be like a 250 to 150 map at best, because everybody on Florida is negative by a good amount, like -6, -4, -9, -3. Like, this is a team that in Atlanta that's probably going to outslay most teams they play, but the fact that Florida's able to stay this close while they're outslaying is concerning to me. All right, and then in the map 2, it was a search on Garrison. Florida takes it in around 11. Abezy kind of struggled in this map. Simp struggled. Arcitys and Celium were all right, but Skies absolutely took over the map, going 15-7. He looked really good again, like usual, like we expect from him last year. He was an MVP candidate, one of the final 5. But yeah, Florida takes this one. I honestly think that both of these two teams are going to be like probably top 5 search teams this year. Skies is a really good search player. I would expect Slack to be solid in search. Awakening is a very good search player, and then Neptune's just coming over from Halo. But you know, I would expect him, being the high gun skill ceiling he has, as long as Skies and Awakening are able to put him in positions to succeed, I assume he's going to be able to win most of his 1v1s. So he'll probably end up being an okay search player, just numbers wise. I realized I just kind of glossed over that. Neptune's in the starting lineup for Havoc. Sorry, I kind of glossed over that a little bit. Havoc got benched. Kind of sucks for him, because it's like you practice the entire off-season, kind of preseason to play for the team, and then all of a sudden, right before the exhibition match, you get benched, and it's like, okay, so I've been able to get no pro points because I haven't been playing in Challenger, so people might not want to pick me up because of my lack of points. And since I just got dropped from a pro team, no pro team's probably going to pick me up right now. So Havoc kind of got screwed. I feel bad for him. But I am excited to see Neptune play. Then in this map 3 control, it goes to Garrison. Atlanta Faze wins at 3-2. Really good map from Abezy and Celium, the duo. Arcitys played all right, and so did Simp. Then the other side, Neptune played really well. This was kind of the game he stood out to me. And then Skies played pretty okay. Then Awakening Slack were all right. They had around a 0.8. But this is the game that Neptune stood out to me. He was taking a lot of gunfights. He was actually taking some smart gunfights. He had some ego chows like any young player is going to have, but he also had some really smart gunfights that I was like, he would put 3 bullets into somebody, realize he was about to get crossfired, and he knows he's not going to finish the kill, so he'd back off, wait, get in a better position, take a better angle, and then take the fight and then win it and maybe get traded out. But instead of just getting killed with no trade available, he'd kind of wait for his trade to be there. He had some patience. He played super fast and stuff, but he also had some patience that is kind of rare to see in some younger guys because they tend to lack a lot of patience, I guess. So yeah, I was pretty hyped after watching this map. I think he's got some high potential. And then Slacked, he kind of struggled. This is where it's like, man, if obviously, rest in peace to Fero, if that tragedy wouldn't have happened, Fero on this team would be so scary. And they had that tribute before this match, I believe it was, for Fero, a really sad tribute. It was pretty sad to see all those guys, like Accuracy was on there, and then Ricky Atura, his coach on Florida, kind of talking about Fero. So obviously, rest in peace, Fero. Man, it'd be so fun to watch him on this team. It'd be fun to just have him around, obviously, because we all miss him. Great player. It seemed like he was an even better person, but man, it would be scary if his team had Fero. Rest in peace, obviously. But yeah, Neptune looks really good, though. I will say that. Then in the map 4, Crossroads Hardpoint, it was kind of a slaughter, 250 to 117 for Florida. This is where the momentum really shifted, in my opinion. Abezy was pretty much the only person, along with maybe Simp, that played all right. Or not Abezy, I'm sorry. Arcitys and Simp both were around to 1. They played all right on the Atlanta side. And then on the Florida side, I mean, when you win by over 125 points, you're obviously going to have pretty good KD lines. Everybody was around a 1.1 or higher. I was really impressed with Neptune. Again, this map, Skies was his usual self. But Florida dominated. Crossroads just isn't a great map. There's so many hills that it's like once you get a decent setup, it is almost unbreakable. So that's why you get, like, I think if Crossroads is played in the rotation this year and it's not replaced by like Standoff or like Express in time, we're going to see a lot of kind of blowout scorelines on this map because there's so many easy hills to hold, and I'm just not, I don't know, I'm not really excited for that because any any map that has really unbreakable hills just isn't fun to watch because it's just a constant slaughter fest of teams holding full 60s back and forth. And the excitement from hardpoint comes in like the contested hills and the breaks and stuff. And if there's no breaks, it's not as exciting. Then the map 5 was Checkmate. Florida takes it 6-3. Awakening kind of took over this map a little bit, but Skies and Select also played well. Neptune struggled a little bit. Then the other side, Simp and Arcitys played well, but Abezy and Celium struggled again. Kind of a takeover from Awakening. Like I said, he went 10-5, and Skies went 9-6. Checkmate again, not a great search map. I hope we can put like Express S&D and replace Checkmate, and then maybe once again get like a standoff S&D and replace it. Because Checkmate with the plane, I mean, especially if you play it in like game battles where snipers aren't GA'd. Snipers are so toxic in this map. You can't even cross anywhere. You basically have to like lay down on the plane and hide so you don't get shot by a sniper. So yeah, Florida takes this. I don't know what my takeaway from this map is. I think it's not time to hit the panic button for Atlanta, but I will say the fact that they were heavily outslaying in a hardpoint and barely won it, and also the fact that they just seem to have Neptune and Awakening or Slacked on subs be able to keep up with them is a little bit concerning. Not time to hit the panic button. I still think Atlanta will be a top 3 team come the end of the year, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, this is more about Florida to me than it is about Atlanta. This is an exhibition match. There's no time to panic for really many teams, except for maybe one that we'll get to later. But Atlanta, no need to panic. They're still going to be a top 3 team. But for Florida, it's like, okay, you played Atlanta, and you were able to win in Neptune's debut, and he hasn't been practicing with the team for that long. So positive takeaway for Florida. And then in the next match, who was it here? It was Paris versus London. I kind of want to speed up a little bit as I go through these matches. But Paris versus London, we had a Garrison hardpoint. Paris takes it 250 to 176. I was kind of surprised by this. I actually expected Paris to be a competitive team this year, and obviously they could end up being amazing or they could end up still sucking. This one exhibition match doesn't tell us a lot. But if it told us anything, it's that at least with London, they might be a decently competitive team. They take that map 1. For them, Classic looks solid. Aqua fried. He had like a 1.8, and then Fire and Scraps are both around 1.1s. They looked very good. Alex struggled a little bit in the map 1. Zero did too. I mean, all of London, they got outslayed pretty heavily in this game. They lost by 75, so that'd be expected. But Aqua looked super good, and Paris looked really nice coming out the gate. Then in the map 2, Checkmate, Search and Destroy. It was a 6-3 for London. Pretty much everybody in London played pretty well, and then everybody on Paris struggled besides Aqua. Aqua looked just really good overall on the day, which I'm not shocked about. Aqua has always been a really underrated player to me. Back in BO3, he used to fry. But then going on to the map 3 control on Garrison, you've got London winning at 3-0. It was honestly pretty much just a stomp. Dylan played really well, which is nice to see because he kind of had a down year last year in comparison to his BO4 year, but overall in the series, he looked pretty good. And then on the other side, once again, it was Aqua and Fire pretty much playing very well. Scraps had a real bad map, and Classic had kind of a down map. They got dominated, though, so it's to be expected. And then the map 4, what was it? It was a Checkmate. That was 250 to 196 hardpoint for Paris. So kind of nice to see for Paris for them to win 2 hardpoints. In this map, Scraps kind of fried, Aqua fried again, and Fire actually fried. And Classic kind of did his job. He was around a 0.9. On the other side, Dylan played really well, and Alex. The other two kind of struggled, especially Zero. I mean, for your main AR to be double neg, yeesh, that's not good to see, especially when the other AR on the other team's going 1.26. But they beat him by 50, so a nice solid scoreline. Fire really impressed me here. He was once again the main slayer on the map. He seems to, like we heard about him, have a little issues with the ego challenge. He sometimes over-chows things. But overall, he really impressed me. If Paris has any hope to be more than like a bottom of the barrel, kind of bottom half of the league team, Fire has to be a superstar, and he showed flashes of it today. Like, he could potentially have that superstar in him, and Scraps looked really good, and Aqua looked really good. And even if Classic doesn't look great, Classic seems to find a way to win a tournament every year, so I'm never going to doubt Classic. I mean, he was around a 0.9 all day. If Classic's around a 0.9 all year, this team will be just fine. Then the map 5 they go to, it's a Miami search. I mean, I hope Miami's out of the rotation. My God, the second we get Express S&D, take that out too. We need Express and Standoff to come in so we can take Miami and Checkmate out for search. But on this map, Paris kind of overall got dominated. London kind of got dominated. I mean, everybody was around even or neg. And then Fire had a 3 KD. He went 9-3. Classic was 10-6. Nice map for him. Aqua was even. And then Scraps didn't really have many engagements. He was like 3-5. But Paris overall, I mean, kind of shockingly looked really good. I kind of expected London. I believe my power rankings, I put them somewhere around like 10. I expected them to fall off just because I don't think they have slaying power. But everything that it seemed like I said Paris needs to be good at, they at least seem to be good at. Now, once again, this is an exhibition match for no points that didn't count for anything, and it was the first like streamed match of the year with really no pressure involved. So much of this could change, but when I said something about Paris, I said they're probably going to be one of the worst teams in the league just because of their roster talent-wise, but I see them having potential to jump up into the middle of the pack possibly and then make some runs in some tournaments if Classic is consistent, which he seems like he can be in this title. If Aqua is a top 8 main AR, which he showed potential to be, and if Fire can be a superstar, which once again, I am by no means calling him a superstar right now. It is way too early to do that. But I would say he showed flashes of potential of being like a main slayer, which that's not saying he's a superstar at all. He could have a horrible year. Who knows? It's way too early to tell. But he showed flashes, I'll say, of being a potential lead slayer. And then if Scraps is also a slayer, and Scraps played really well today. So I think they have all the pieces to possibly jump from more of a bottom team to more of the middle of the pack or kind of an upper echelon team. Another positive for them is they were basically only able to win searches last year. That's how they live and died. They would win 2 searches in the series and maybe sneak out a hard point or like a dom last year. They got destroyed in control, but they won both hard points pretty handily and were able to take a search. So the fact that they won 2 hard points is a pretty positive sign. And then on the side of London, a positive you can take out of it, Dylan played pretty well all day. And obviously if this team is looking to have major success, Dylan has to be the superstar like he was in Black Ops 4. I would say the big negative takeaway for me, Zero did not look good, and that's hard for me to say because I'm a big Zero fan. He maybe is my favorite European player of all time. But like in that map 4 hardpoint, he went double negative. In the map 1 hardpoint, he had a 0.7, and he's playing the main AR, so he's got to pick it up. Shawnee looked like typical Shawnee around a 0.9, just like a solid player. And then Alex was really up and down. Played well in the searches, except for the map 5, he didn't play all that well. And then played okay in the hardpoints, but I would say Dylan needs to continue where he's at or maybe even step up a little bit more. Shawnee needs to keep playing consistent. Alex maybe step up a little bit more, and Zero certainly needs to step up. Then moving on to the second to last match, it was Minnesota versus Toronto. This was another really good match, actually. The Battle of the North, if you kind of want to call it that like they do. Minnesota is able to take it 3-2. On the map 1, Toronto actually takes it on Garrison Hardpoint 250 to 244. A really close map. Another kind of weird scoreline. If you look at the numbers dropped by the players, Bance absolutely fried, which I'm kind of shocked about. I was one of the people on the train that this team should have kept Classic over Bance. Obviously, that could still be the right call. Who knows? This is, like I said, one exhibition match. I know there's going to be a lot of Bance fans that want to comment how I usually rank him low or something, but once again, let's not overreact. Just like if Bance got destroyed, I won't want to overreact and say he's absolute garbage. Let's not overreact because he had one good weekend. It's something to be positive about for sure. But, you know, it's nice to see him do well, and I hope it continues because I'm kind of a Toronto fan. I kind of like the Toronto the players. I obviously really like Methods, like we've said in the past. But in this map 1, Bance fried. He went 37-22. Methods struggled with like a 0.6. Cammy was pretty solid, and CleanX really, really struggled, going almost double neg. And then on the other side, Accuracy was also negative on the main, and then Major Maniac, Priest, and Attach were all at like 1.1s. So this is interesting to me because usually, I mean, maybe that's going to be a trend this year. Usually your main AR is pretty much always positive because the role they play tends to be a slower, more methodical, and you're going to pick up pretty much free kills all the time, and you're not going to go negative too often. But on this map, 2 of the 3 players that went negative were the main ARs, and CleanX really struggled. But it was good to see Bance fry, and they win it by 6 points. In the map 2, Minnesota takes it 6-4. CleanX pretty much was the only one that had a good map on Toronto. And then Major Maniac absolutely took over on the other side. He went 12-4. To me, these are going to be 2 teams that are pretty good at search all year, so I'm interested to see. I think that's where Minnesota is going to have the X factor. I think either way, in my opinion, Minnesota is going to be at least like a top 8, kind of middle of the pack team. But to me, the way that they can propel themselves into like the top 5 or top 4 is through is through their hardpoint and their control, their respawn game modes. Because to me, this team, when you have a team with Priesta, who's a very good search player, Attach, who's a search star, and Major Maniac, who's a search star, you have 3 search stars in your team. You're probably going to be pretty good at search and destroy, which was proven in this series for them winning 2 searches. As long as they can just get it together in their hardpoint and their control, I feel like they could be a top 4 team potentially, because I mean, they're going to be really good at search regardless, in my opinion, but even a team with accuracy, Major Maniac, Priesta, Attach, they're not going to struggle to slay. They might not be able to keep up because they don't have really many natural subs on their team, but I feel like they should be able to slay with the best of them, so that should be able to keep them up. But they win that map 6-4. Then in the control, they pretty much manhandled Toronto 3-0. Everybody in Toronto was like double negative, and then you had accuracy, who had a 17-6 game, Attached with a 17-7 game, and then Major Maniac and Priest were both above a 1. I mean, they absolutely destroyed them. It wasn't even close. Like, nobody even had 3k damage in this game because it was such a fast game. There's not really much to talk about there. I mean, it was a checkmate control, and it was absolutely dominated by Minnesota Rocker. Positive sign for them, I suppose. And then Toronto was also to take the game 4 hardpoint. Able to take that 250 to 134. Once again, kind of a slaughter. Not a lot to talk about. Cammy, Kleenex, Bance. I mean, Bance destroyed again. And Methods was okay. Accuracy really struggled. Priest really struggled. Attach had an okay map, and Major Maniac had an okay map. But honestly, overall, dominated. Good to see Bance play well again. Bance struggled in pretty much every other map that wasn't a hardpoint. But to see him playing really well and them dominating hardpoints once again, I think Toronto is a team that has a lot of potential in search, so to see them dominate hardpoints is a positive. Then the map 5 Garrison goes to a round 11 map 5, and Minnesota takes it. Priesta, Major Maniac were the duo on this map. They went 12-7 and 12-6. On the other side, Kleenex had a really solid map. Everybody else kind of struggled. Besides maybe Cammy played okay. He went 7-9. But this is a scary sign to me for the Minnesota Rocker S&D as well, because Major Maniac and Priesta took over the map, which they certainly can do because they're both excellent search players. But Attach only went 2-6 in this map 5, and if you know anything about Attach, he's kind of Mr. Map 5. He's really good in the clutch situations, and he was able to get away with a 2-6 map, and they still win. But once again, positives for both teams in this series, in my opinion. Minnesota loses both hardpoints and still wins the series, showing that they're a good search team, and they absolutely dominated in control with the most impressive control performance of the weekend, maybe. And Toronto, the positives to take off for them, they were able to win 2 hardpoints against a good team with good players that can slay, and then they lost the search 6-5 and 6-4. So honestly, it's like, okay, a couple rounds go your way, you could win both those searches. You win one hardpoint dominatingly, and then you win a close one. You just got to figure out your control, because wow, was that bad. All right. Then the final match, talk about a slaughter. Another 3-0, the most anticipated match of the year, or not of the year, probably of the weekend, though, because there's so many Optic fans, and obviously there's probably a lot of LA Thieves fans with Nadeshot being the owner. But the match was pretty awful, honestly, from a viewer's point of view. Optic dominated at 3-0. But the peak viewership, I believe, did get over 100K, which is awesome. I'm super hyped about that, because this is an exhibition match on a late Sunday afternoon during the middle of the NFC Championship game where Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers were going head-to-head. Pretty much in my house, I was watching the game on the TV because I'm from Wisconsin, so obviously I had some Packer fans around. I was watching the game on the TV, and then on my phone in my hand, I had the match on because I really wanted to see the most anticipated match. So the fact that they got over 100K viewers on an exhibition preseason match while the NFC Championship of Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers was going on, it's pretty impressive. But yeah, in this map 1, it was a Garrison hardpoint. It was 250 to 136 for Optic. It was 18-18 for Scump. He had around a 1. Everybody else was a 1.2 or higher, and then Envoy had a 1.7. Then the other side, pretty much everybody really struggled besides Temp, who had like a 1.1. One of my big takeaways from this map was Dashy looked pretty good on the flex. Obviously, he's still using an AR because you use an AR on most maps as the flex in this game as of right now. But he looked pretty comfortable on it. That's one thing I was concerned about, is he really wants to play the main. Would he be kind of uncomfortable with Formal on it? But he looked pretty good. And Envoy looked like he was back in MVP form, and Scump looked pretty good. And then in the search, it was a checkmate. God, I hate checkmate search. It's just not good. But Optic wins this 6-4. Scump had a nice map. Formal struggled a bit, and then Envoy, once again, was kind of the search MVP for this team. And nobody on LA Thieves really played that well. Besides TJ, he was the best on the team with 1.3. Once again, Checkmate's just not a great map to watch. There's just like no clear lanes you can really push because everything's such a long line of sight. I'm not a huge fan of the map. I hope it gets subbed out for like a standoff or an express, but Optic wins that one as well. And then the control was a pretty handled win by Optic. It was a raid control. They went at 3-0. Scump once again went 18 and 18, just like he did in map 1. Formal with a 1.2. Envoy had a 1.7. And then the same thing goes for LA Thieves once again. They had a pretty solid performance. I'm sorry, I messed this up a little bit here. In that map 1, actually, Scump went 29-18. I had the wrong scoreboard up. My bad. Scump dominated in that map 1. Envoy actually struggled. I had the control and hardpoint scoreboards flipped around a little bit. Sorry about that. Envoy was the one that struggled on Optic, and Dashy fried, like I said. And then nobody on 100 Thieves really did anything because they really struggled in that map. And then in the control, that's where it was. Scump went 18 and 18. Sorry about that once again. Scump had an even game, then everybody else was at a 1.2, but Envoy dominated with like a 1.7. Then on LA Thieves, everybody pretty much struggled, but Temp, it was a pretty dominating performance here in the control. A 3-0. My takeaways from this are it might be a little bit of panic time for 100 Thieves. Obviously not a complete panic. They don't need to make a roster change, nothing that drastic. But I will say, looking at it, their goal with a team of Slasher and Kenny and Temp and TJ, I mean, that's a superstar studded team. Their goal with that team is to pretty much be competing immediately for like a top 4, top 5 spot in the league, and they don't even look like they're close because Optic were also expecting to be a top 4, top 5 team, and they absolutely destroyed LA Thieves here. So it's a little bit scary. The one thing I will say about this, though, is Slashers teams tend to start slow, so there's kind of a positive and a kind of a relaxation thing for you if you're an LA Thieves fan. And the one thing I'd say if you're an Optic fan, I know Optic fans like to talk kind of a lot of smack and stuff, and the one thing I will say about Optic is going back to BO4, in the beginning of the game, they were the best team by far. They won the first event like without dropping any maps pretty much. And then same thing with MW. They were like the best team in the game early on. Everybody was saying, oh, it's Dallas. They got to LAN. And Chicago Huntsmen were the best team. They won. Then they end up winning the first event. They dominate. And then they kind of tailed off for a while, won one more event eventually, and then never won another event. So I would say if you're LA Thieves, if you're a fan of them, relax. Slashers teams usually start out slow. I think they'll be just fine. And I think they'll pick it up, and eventually by the end of the year, I think they'll be top 6 or even top 4. They're going to make the playoffs, I'm sure. I wouldn't worry about it. And if you're an Optic fan, don't get too ahead of yourselves because Scump, I'm sure he's going to be good all year. I'm sure Optic's going to be great all year. I'm sure they're going to be a top 4 team for the season. I bet you they'll finish at least top 4 at champs, if not higher. But the one thing I will say, Scump seems to start out really hot. Dashy seems to start out really hot. Formal, Envoy, they all seem to start out really hot. But Scump and Formal teams, or just Optic teams in general, seem to be the best team for the first month or two of the game. And then they seem to tail off a little bit, and then they pick it back up for champs. So I would say Optic, I think they're going to be top 4 all year, but let's not just instantly crown them the best or something. Same with Dallas and Atlanta. We can't instantly crown them the best. But I will say I think Optic's going to be top 4 all year. There's no doubt in my mind. They look amazing, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves calling them like easily the best team in the game. I think if I had to put some money on it, I think there's a decent chance that Optic wins the first major because they always seem to start out so hot. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and just crown them the best team in the game. But they do look really good, and they look really scary. That's about it for the matches, though. This video's kind of going on pretty long. I kind of got long-winded talking about the matches, but I was just too excited to talk about them, so I kind of had to go for a while. Just a tiny bit of news to get into quickly before the podcast ends. Just a few things like league play, kind of addressing things, and a little bit of other league news. I'm sure you probably saw right after my last video, my last rant, about league play not being in the game, that it seems to actually be finally coming. We kind of have an announcement. It's going to be coming by like February 20th or 24th or something like that by the latest. It could be tomorrow or something, but it's supposed to come within like the next month. But it'll probably be delayed, knowing how Call of Duty and likes to work and stuff. But the one thing I want to be sure to say, just like I said in my other video, let's make sure we don't praise them for this. The fact of the matter is they're getting us league play 3 months after the release of the game. That isn't something to praise them for. I mean, giving them praise only allows them to set this as the standard of having no ranked play for 3 months off launch. This is a $1 billion company. This frankly is not acceptable. I mean, they're getting us league play. The game came out in like what, early November. We had all of November, all of December, now all of January, and then maybe we're going to get it in late February. That's like 3.5 to 4 months after the game release. This is multi-billion dollar a year company in Activision, and we're not getting a ranked play for over 3 months in our game. So yes, I'm super hyped. I'm so hyped to finally be able to play some non-pubs here coming in like the next month, hopefully, if it doesn't get delayed like BO4 did. But let's be sure we don't like say, oh my god, Treyarch, you're the best. Oh my god, Activision, you're the best for giving us this. Let's be like, yes, thank you. We're happy you at least gave us a ranked play. Thank you for that. But let's not like super praise them for giving us 3 months after the game came out. We can't let them can't let them make this the standard. We need to make it a standard that it's going to be in the game off launch. So once again, be hyped for it. Let's get excited. Let's thank them for it. But let's not allow them to be so happy with our feedback that we allow them to make this a standard. And then also the schedule for the entire league seems to have dropped, and we basically have matches every single week almost from like March to July, with kind of like a major in each month, and then usually after the major there seems to be like an extra week off for the players to kind of reset. But there's mostly matches every week, which is kind of cool. I'm super stoked for this kind of schedule. I think it's going to make it feel kind of more like the old years of like the CWL when it was way better, kind of with just regular season type matches. Then like every 3-4 weeks we have a big huge tournament with a major that has every team at it, so it makes it feel more like a legit win if you win it. I'm hoping each of these majors can be on LAN if players can quarantine and stuff. I think the expectations of that are probably not all that realistic, unfortunately. At least hopefully Champs is on LAN, for God's sake. But I'm hoping at least a couple of these majors could be on LAN maybe. And then eventually I think if the CDL can get to 24 to like 30 teams, like an NBA, NFL kind of league, kind of close to those numbers, I feel like the majors, if they keep it in this format, are going to feel kind of normal again finally, because instead of having AM teams, obviously that'll never happen again, which makes me ridiculously sad to even think about and talk about. But if we can have like 24 teams at the major, or even up to 30 teams at the major, it'll make it feel more, I don't know, more normal again, like the old majors. And like, I know people are probably thinking right away, holy crap, we have 30 teams, there's going to be some bad teams. But I think it'll work, in my opinion, I think, because it'll kind of just be like the NFL. Like, every once in a while, like, you can't compete every year. Some years you kind of know going into it, you know, we're probably not going to have a great team this year, because like if we have a team with Scump, Formal, Dashy, and Envoy on one side, and like all the teams that are there this year and stuff, those are probably going to be your best teams. And if you're an expansion team, it's like, you know what, we're going to pick up these 2 18-year-olds from Halo, these 2 18-year-olds from Challengers. We're going to try to build, and then maybe that year you figure out like one of them is a superstar. So, okay, we're going to make this guy a franchise player, and then some veteran will want to come kind of pair himself with him. So we'll get a veteran along, and it'll kind of just be like building franchises like you do in like the NFL or NBA, where you kind of like find your young guys, you take flyers, try to develop them, then eventually you sign your veteran to go with them. And I think if we can expand to that many teams, it could be super fun. Because let's face it, every year in sports, your team can't be a playoff team. So if the CDL gets to the point where it's 24 to 30 teams, it'd be kind of cool to see all of them at the major. And some teams can make Cinderella runs, because it's Call of Duty. It's not like football. When Call of Duty, all the players in the league are going to have a somewhat similar kind of skill cap, and if they have a good week, they might be able to make a run, and they'll bring like the Cinderella aspect back to the league. Like let's say, for example, like London, let's say like Minnesota, something people won't get so mad at me for. Let's say like Minnesota one year has just a trash team, and then at one major they're there, they make a run to like top 8. It'll kind of be like when the AM teams used to make a run to top 8. Like, it'll be super exciting, because it'll be like, you know, Minnesota's kind of bad this year, but hey, they made a super fun run. When the league's a little more expanded, I think these majors could get even better, and it'll make it more fun to watch. But that's kind of going to do it for this one, I believe. I hope you enjoyed this dive back into a more normal format for the podcast. I certainly enjoyed it, able to talk a little bit more over some Call of Duty. But please be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Share this video with another CDL fan that you know, another friend that you have, another person you talk to on Twitter, another person you game with or something. Share the video if they're a CDL fan to kind of grow our community, have more people to talk to about the CDL. Then also, like I said, if you're new, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it if you enjoyed the video. And then most importantly, give me some of your opinions and your takes in the comments. I really look forward to reading them. I love to reply to them, kind of start a conversation. And don't forget to comment down below if you're interested in a Draft Buff League. I really would like to get that draft done in the next week or two, so we have a little time before the season starts. But that's going to do it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I will see you in the next podcast video, hopefully sometime next week. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for watching.